Good evening, everyone. This is a meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the Town of Eastham. Today is April 3rd, and this is a partially remote participation meeting, and the members of the board are gathered in the Earle Mountain Room at Town Hall. Applicants and the public may participate in person here or online through the Zoom app or by phoning in. This meeting will be live broadcast on local access channel 18 and streaming on the town website. Under the executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law signed by former Governor Charlie Baker in March 2020 and extended by Governor Maura Healey to June 20th, 2027, all members in any meeting of a public body may participate remotely. I'm Joanne Verlinden, Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and with the help of my colleagues, I will be heading the meeting this week. Before we begin, allow me to explain the procedures we will follow as we proceed through the hearing. I will introduce the case to be heard and name the board members who will be seated on the case. This will be followed by a presentation by the applicant or the applicant's representative of the nature of the case and the reasons for requesting either a special permit or a variance. Following that, board members may ask questions regarding various aspects of the case. And at any point in this process, the applicant or the applicant's representative may request a continuance to make appropriate revisions to the application. If a hearing is to be continued to a later meeting, a motion is required and shall contain a date certain for the hearing to be resumed. Any revised or supplemental invitation for the board shall be submitted no later than the Thursday prior to the next regularly scheduled meeting. When board members have finished with their questions, we will open the meeting to abutters and other interested members of the public to hear their questions or concerns, and the applicant or the applicant's representative may respond to them. When it appears there are no more questions, we will close the meeting to the public, and the board may then discuss the application and, when ready, proceed to a reading of the findings of fact, followed by a motion to either approve or amend the findings, and a vote will be taken. Following that will be a reading of the conditions, again followed by a motion to approve or amend the conditions, and a vote will be taken. The last order of business will be to decide whether to approve or deny the applicant's request, and again, a vote will be taken. To grant approval of a special permit or a variance requires a vote in favor by at least 4 of the board members who are seated on the case. At any point before a final vote is taken, the applicant or applicant's representative may ask that the application be withdrawn without prejudice. This means that the case is not dismissed forever and that the applicant can try again at a later time with better data or more information for the board's review. So tonight we are hearing case number ZBA 2025-02. 150 State Highway, map 20, parcel 114, 150 Old State Highway Cottages, LLC. The owner applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 6, and Eastham Zoning Bylaw, Sections 19.2, special permits, and 4.7, conversion of an existing cottage, colony, motel, hotel, or inn to a single-family, two-family, multifamily, or seasonal workforce housing use under any type of ownership, including, but not limited to, condominium ownership, cooperative ownership, or other forms of ownership where a structure or portion thereof is held in different ownership from the remainder of the structure or the land on which it is to convert to 7 pre-existing non-conforming seasonal use cottages to 7 individual year-round condominiums, and a vote may be taken. Seated on this case will be myself, Martin Ridge, Jared Carey, Doug Bird, and Justin Kennington. If the applicant or your representative would care to speak to us, we'd be happy to hear from you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Anthony Pontebianco on behalf of the applicant 150 Old State Highway Cottages LLC, and Gary Vecchione, who's seated to my right here, the manager and owner of the LLC. We're here before you, as you stated, seeking a special permit for the conversion of the property under 19.2 and of the bylaws that is required under section 4.7 of the bylaws, as you stated. I'd first like to thank the members of the staff that have assisted us with this in the town, particularly Paul Legg and Jackie O'Rourke, Hillary Greenberg, Limos, Justin Post, Susan Barker, and Alex Bates. They've been instrumental in helping us and conferring with us, so that we really appreciate their time and their efforts. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge, because I understand they are here tonight, members of the Collins family. Mr. Glenn Collins is behind us, and I believe Linda Collins is on the line as well, for their stewardship of the property as well.
Could I interrupt you just for a second? Have you signed in at the table behind?
We have.
And you, sir, have you signed in? Thank you.
So I just wanted to thank them for the stewardship of the property. What we're looking here to do today, I understand, is a matter of first impression since the bylaw changed in 2022, and it was adopted relative to the conversion of a cottage colony for this. So we appreciate the time and effort that goes into both drafting the laws and the case of first impression for the ZBA. I sit on my local ZBA in Yarmouth, so I understand how that operates and works, and it's always interesting when we get a first case in to see how it's going to go. But ultimately, as this board knows, the qualifications for a special permit is fairly straightforward in what the board must look at in review. And it is whether or not the requested change is in harmony with the general purposes and intent in the ordinance of the bylaw. And here we look to what the intent and purpose of the bylaws in the Eastham zoning bylaws are, which are to conserve the best qualities of the town as they now exist. That is precisely what the request is here doing. It's about preservation and preserving the best qualities of the town. The college colonies that we're looking to preserve is to maintain this current footprint that they're on, is to maintain the scope and preservation of them in perpetuity. What is requested in the particular bylaw, section 4.7, is to obtain a special permit from you. And with that, there are certain qualifications that we need. One of those is obtaining and finding a certification from the Eastham Board of Health that the septic system is applicable and proper for that particular property, and executing a covenant with the town of Eastham that in a form acceptable to the Board of Selectmen, that we guarantee that those units that are converted, those 7 cottages, will be either rented for a period of 12 months and no less than that, or shall be owner occupied. That is what we're requesting in our particular ones. There's an additional covenant restriction that it could be seasonal workforce for a specific period of time for not more than 6 months. Nonetheless, we've provided, as you've all seen, the covenant, our proposed covenant to the town. We've gone through the steps as necessary to obtain the initial septic permit, which was in December of 2024. That is planned today. We filed the notice of intent for that septic installation. So our processes are ongoing, and that is recognized in what I want to thank Jackie O'Rourke for putting together that you have in your packets is the proposed conditions. The proposed conditions that have been provided for, I believe it's page 4 of your packet. Those are the conditions that we would ask that the board look at and approve in granting this special permit. We believe that converting these properties, these cottages from seasonal to year-round usage, which is really what the bylaw is requesting and what the application is for, preserves them in perpetuity. And it preserves them for the benefit of the town. As this town is no doubt aware, all throughout Cape Cod, there's a shortage of affordable housing. These will be provided for year-round long-term housing for individuals. And they're a wonderful escape. I hope that many of you have been to the property and are certainly more than welcome to come at all times and view the property. But it's a historical property in town, and I'm sure you're familiar with it. But the meaning of a special permit and the qualifications for it to make sure that it is within the general intent of the ordinance and will not derogate from that. We directly meet that with what we're asking for. It's not, it won't increase any traffic. It won't have any negative impact on the surrounding neighbors or surrounding areas. Simply, we're asking that this be able to have year-round owners or renters in these cottages moving forward. The units are winterized and have units in them to provide for heating. And we're just looking for approval so we can continue on with our operation. We came before the ZBA first, specifically, to understand that it's feasible for what the rest of the plans are. The rest of the plans are, as noted, is to make them into individual condos, but we have to be able to first, as determined by Mr. Lag here, first come before the board in his zoning determination letter, first come before the board and make sure that the change from seasonal to year-round is approved for by the ZBA. So that's our first step, and you're our first kind of line in the sand that we're asking for approval here on this project. And we look forward to working with the town and are open to any questions that you may have about the scope of the project or, history and what we're looking to do here.
Thank you. Ask board for questions, or the public for questions?
Let's do us first. Questions, comments? Anybody?
A couple, and this may be for staff, but the applicant is requesting a special permit to convert the cottages into a condominium. But the covenant with the town gives them much broader authority. Shouldn't we limit the covenant with the town to what the applicant is requesting?
Maybe you want to explain what you're seeing in the covenant that
Yeah, where's the covenant too broad?
Yeah, the restriction in the covenant picks up the language from the bylaw or what a conversion can be approved for, and it includes rented or leased property and goes on and on. But the applicant is requesting for a conversion from a cottage community to a condominium style structure. Shouldn't covenant with the town, which exists in perpetuity, to what we are approving today?
Specifically,
A condominium community.
and that's it.
That's what's being requested. Because if we don't, we will approve the request for a condominium community, but the property will have attached to it a covenant with the town that actually gives it broader approval than that.
Right. Okay. Paul?
Well, I was just saying, that makes sense. It's something that certainly the board could discuss if you want to
Mm-hmm.
amend the language. It's
Yeah, if I'm
your point.
hearing Mr. Bird, your question correctly, it's to the restriction in paragraph 1 on page 2 that you're looking at. I believe that those units converted to single family, 2-family, or multifamily, which aren't the intent. So why have that language in there?
That's
Yeah,
that's
but the
question.
yeah the way that the bylaw, it was written that way by me, candidly, because that's the way the bylaw 4.7 reads. To have it state condominium, it has to be approved by the Board of Selectmen, but we're perfectly fine with it because that is our intent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was written that way because that's how the bylaw is.
No, that's what the bylaw says.
Yeah, I just want to say something about that. So the only restriction that I would ask to not have in there is on the main house. It may in fact be suitable for a 2-family, but we don't have any intention of 3 families or multi-families or anything like that. So I'm more than happy to add that language into your satisfaction.
How should we word it?
Just, it's actually, it's, the covenant is between the town and town's council
Yeah.
and the applicant.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure we can change it, but I'm not sure, let's put it this way, I'm not sure I'm comfortable approving this with that inconsistency in the language.
Okay.
So that's just where my head is. I don't know what would you suggest to adjust the language?
I think it's a suggestion and it would have to be approved by town council, of course, is converted to a single family or two family, which I think would be consistent. They are converted to condominium as a project, but those individual units, cottages are converted to a single family or two families with the exclusion. The only problem that I might see just in doing this before is if there's a restriction that is outside the scope of what the covenant provides for, it's written specifically that way, town council might not approve it. Hypothesizing here, of course. But we're happy to work with town council to have a definition that works for both the town and ourselves. But in terms of the condition that we ask for today, here from the ZBA, I think a condition that number 4, the proposed conditions prior to recording the special permit will execute a covenant in the form acceptable to the town and approved by town council. That's what is proposed. We would agree to that. You know, we're happy to strike the 3-family cottages, certainly.
Doug,
There's
Doug,
no,
let me talk about it a different way and see what you think. The way I read this, yes, it contemplates 2-family, multifamily, seasonal workforce housing, none of which seems to be part of their plan, but it's not explicitly allowing any of those things. As I read it, it's saying anything that's converted to single family has these rental restrictions. Anything converted to 2-family has these rental restrictions. Anything converted to multifamily has these rental restrictions. And then I think we're going to go on to approve, outside of this covenant, to approve what they can do with them and how they can use them and whether they're allowed to do multifamily or not. I think through our permit process, it feels to me like this covenant is just specifically about whatever you do to them, multifamily, giant apartments, circus
That's all.
tents, you just can't rent them for a week at a time.
Right, what the concern, and I don't know how this plays out, but my concern was when I read that it comes before the ZBA one time to get an approval for the conversion.
Mhm.
If we approve the conversion and the language in the restriction is broader than what we've approved, my assumption is they don't have to come back here to seek another approval to convert the condominium association into rental housing, for example.
Well, I
right?
wonder
think you would.
if we could,
But you would have to come before you.
I don't know.
I'll let Paul answer
know.
that, but it would be my interpretation that if you accept and approve the special permit for the condo conversion, and then it was going to change into rentals, you would absolutely have to come back before you because it would be in
Change of
opposition
use.
to it's change
I'll
of use.
willingly offer that.
and it seems to me maybe we could leave the covenant alone. Maybe there's some condition we need to place on, that says something like, you told us you want to convert these into single family houses. Our condition is you can only convert these into single family houses. And now that's just a ZBA condition. So in 10 years, if circumstances have changed and they want to do something else and the town is in the mood to approve something else, I would think.
You would seek a modification of the special.
Yeah,
permit.
they could go ask for a new permit and the board at that time could grant it or not.
So
But we could do the same thing now by.
All I'm saying is I don't feel like this covenant as written
Yeah.
has any bearing on our ability to say what they can turn the houses into. This has bearing on
Right.
how they can rent them or not after the conversion.
I agree with you, Justin.
but shouldn't it say that they'll enter into the covenant? We'll convert it into single family home, because what they've represented is that they're converting it into a condominium that will be owned properties. That they're not leased properties, they're owned condominium
Right,
properties.
I agree with you.
Right?
I think.
So shouldn't the
I need-
condition be that the covenant, we can put it in there, the covenant will ensure that the current cottages are converted into single-family owned condominiums? Because that's what you're proposing, right?
No, I think the restriction specifically isn't what's going into the covenant is not limiting what they can do with the land other than on the rental part. We're just saying that this is only restricting it to. I read it as no matter what you do, whether you convert this to condos, single family duplexes, triplexes, that no matter what you do, in the end of the day, you can only rent it out. Will be rented out for 12 months at a time, therefore be owner occupied.
And I think if you look at, maybe if we switch this and look in terms of the bylaw, set the covenant aside for a minute and look at the bylaw. The bylaw is contemplating that there are many types of building and residential structure that you could have, single, multi, duplex, et cetera. But in any of those cases, and it says right here, executes a covenant with the town that limits your ability to rent. And that, to me, I think the covenant is just limiting how you can rent it and making no statement whatsoever about, in the covenant, making no statement about what you may or may not convert these into.
I
We
agree.
we maybe need to limit that. I just don't think the covenant's job is that.
I agree with that. I think.
Okay.
My only concern is that we are approving, so the applicant is requesting something. And if we approve the special permit, are approving that. But in the covenant with the town, they have broader authority.
I struggle to read that the covenant gives them broader authority.
Yeah, I don't believe
It
that
talks about single family, two family, and multifamily. That doesn't mean you have those things or are allowed to have those things. It just means if you have those things, and then, after the verb is the
So
things you can and
so
can't
you
do with
think
them.
that if we grant a special permit to convert current cottages into owned single-family properties,
Mhm.
that they then cannot, 2 weeks from now, decide, I'm not going to sell them, I'm going to lease them. Because
Or even
the
make it,
covenant would say that they could.
Why? Now you're bringing the lease into it. I think they could in 2 weeks decide to lease them, right?
But we haven't approved that. We've
Yeah.
approved
Yes.
owned condominiums,
Right. Not, for-
not lease.
not for leasing, for selling.
Well, okay, I don't think, just because you convert it to a condo doesn't mean you have to sell it, first of all. Right, they'll convert it to condos and then presumably immediately 150 State Highway LLC will own all 7 of those condos. They now have the right to sell them or not, and as far as I see it and am concerned, they even have the right to continue to own them and lease them under these terms,
Longer
that
than
you
12
can't lease
months.
them for less than 12 months.
correct.
Right, but there is a minimum that you add in your own bylaws. It says 6 months for worker housing. So we want to do one or the other according to what the town allows. We can pro-offer anything you want in language to make sure that your needs are met and our needs are met. And our needs, or mine, are to have a permit issued as soon as possible and to go forward with the rest of the permitting. I offered something to town, not to get something, but to give something, because Eastham is in my heart. It has been since a child. I was a child and my dad owned a cottage on Kingsbury Beach Road. We used to go down to the pocket ship, the whole thing that everybody that loves Eastham had. Right part of it. So we can offer that, and we can address that, and we're willing to do it. I don't have a problem striking language about 3 families because I don't want 3 families there. I'm gonna live there, God willing, for the rest of my life. So there's a flavor to that property that I want to leave in perpetuity. That's why we offered things that were outside of the scope of the board, so.
And that makes sense. I hear that. I think our discussion is just about how much the covenant does or doesn't do the job and how much what conditions we put on the
Right,
special
right.
permit does or doesn't do job. And then you brought in the issue of selling the condos, which I imagine is the intent, but I don't think that is really relevant or part of our scope anyway.
Paul, last year when we adopted the amendments to the bylaws, the zoning bylaws, I recall at town meeting, there was a discussion that there's a limitation on the number of rental properties that, is that limited to seasonal rental
Short-term,
properties
yeah.
or all rental properties?
short-term.
Short-term rental.
Short-term
Right.
rentals, okay.
So even if, even if the applicants had converted to condo, they have 7 condos on their hands. This particular season or next season, they could do them as as workforce housing. So they could sign 6-month leases until they're sold, which is one business opportunity, but they cannot do short-term rentals this summer,
We don't want
next
that.
summer,
We
or
understand
any
why
summer.
why the town wants.
One concern is when we look at the scope of the entire project, and we're looking at 7 units, I believe 7 condo units. And if this language, let's say 20 years in the future, people rebuild their units and they want to turn those into duplexes at that time. That's a whole different, that's when your issue would kick in, Doug. All of a sudden, everybody wanted to make a 2-bedroom, a 2-unit condo. They still have to come back to the town.
Yeah.
To add extra units.
And they have to go through Cape Cod Commission, which is a 7-month time frame.
Yeah, I think any change from the current structures of the properties to change them into a two-family unit or anything like that, you would have to come before the town
And
in
we
advance.
put it in.
Yeah, and it's in our own condo docs as well, that none of that is.
Okay.
Yeah, my only concern is that the applicant is coming before us requesting a special permit to convert the cottages into condominiums that are owned by single family, they're gonna be owned. And if we approve this with the conditions that are here, we're approving more than they're asking for. Because they're asking for only owned, and this says you can own them or you can lease them.
Well, I think when you put it that way, that's very valid. Let's just make sure that our conditions address that. I personally feel that the covenant is just not here for that purpose.
So
It's here to say,
maybe we
you
just
can't
need-
rent them
so
for
maybe
a
we
week at a
just
time.
Change the condition to.
And I was
take
just,
out
I was just pulling up the
the
conditions here to say, what does that look like?
to number 5.
Yeah,
condition.
Okay.
Can I address that while you're looking?
You may, but I won't listen while I'm still reading.
I can't read and listen at the same time, so you can.
In the late nineties, I was part of, I owned a piece of property on the water in Charles Howard Island. The banking crisis was in full blown effect. Waterfront property couldn't even give it away. So the one thing I don't want to do is if God forbid the real estate market were to crash down here, that I don't want to be in a position where I have to sell these. I would want to be able to sell them to someone who would possibly lease them himself. If you put conditions on that, it's a 1-year minimum or a 6-month minimum, an investor or someone else should have that ability to recoup their investment. There's a lot of taxes being paid on that. There's a lot of things that we're offering to keep this place in perpetuity. When I turned around and saw this property for the first time, I thought, I want that to stay this way forever. So that's my goal, and I'm just asking you to help me do that.
I just want to be clear. I think what you're talking about right now is how it's important to you to maintain the ability to rent these out in a long-term way.
Not me, I'm not going in the rental business. My
No, I know.
Fine, fine,
But-
fine.
but-
But it's
but-
important to you to maintain that ability for the property.
Right, right. If the
That makes
economy
total
is-
sense. I
if
just
the
wanted to
economy
follow.
is- Right, if the economy or some other reason forced you to have to rent for 2 years before you sold everything, I don't have a problem with that. That wouldn't be
You know,
a misdirection to me. That's business.
Consistent with the bylaw.
yeah, and I think it's in the proposed condition 5, it's that Jackie O'Rourke spelled out here, which again, we appreciate. It spells that out pretty clearly, that it shall be single-family use pursuant to the special permit or rented for not less than 12 consecutive months.
I think
within the-
here, what I would say is I agree. This doesn't even contemplate duplex or multifamily. It also, to my view, doesn't specifically limit you. Again, it's not saying you may only convert to single family. It's saying anything that you do convert to single family use pursuant to blah, 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 must be leased in the right way or owner occupied. So I think if it was important to us to add a condition that they're not to be converted to duplexes or multifamily, I think we'd have to add that condition. I don't know, Paul, if you feel like that's necessary, or, I mean, the application pretty clearly states that we kind of don't want to change their use, we just want to change their ownership.
And the town already has a bylaw on how to handle conversion to two-family or multiple
Right.
houses.
Right, so it's not clear to me, it may be the case, but it's not clear to me that we need to explicitly call out that condition. Maybe we do, I don't know.
No, I agree,
Well,
and I think if the board, if we're comfortable granting a special permit that is broader than what has been requested, I agree with it. It's consistent, single family use, rented or leased for 12 months or owner occupied. I mean, if that's the condition, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay.
I do have a couple of other quick questions. I had a couple of quick questions. I'm sorry, you can finish with your sidebar if you want.
Before we go there, I'd like to look at your statement that you have approval for a septic system. You have a approval from the Board of Health for a plan.
Correct.
You don't have an approval that I understand for a septic system. And if we look at the findings of fact number 4, it states that explicitly, the applicant does not have a finding and certification from the Eastham Board of Health that the septic system and water supply system for said premises comply with Eastham's current health code requirements. And that is part of well, there's been a letter sent by the Board of Health, Susan Barker, indicating that the property was transferred on February 24th of this year. The previous property owner applied for an upgrade of a septic system, which included the use of IA technology. However, the approval was granted for the system as the property existed at that time, seasonal cottages, not a condo complex. And then there was a Board of Health notification that this septic system as it currently exists, which is cesspools, is not in compliance, and that the one of the conditions for approving your request for a special permit is that there is a septic system, it is certified, it has been tested, it's in the ground.
Yes, and I'm going to go backwards, if you will, in your questions there, if I may. The proposed conditions, condition number 2 specifically calls that out and saying that a finding and certification from the Board of Health that the then installed passes the health code and has the final certification before the recording of the special permit decision. So that request in the proposed conditions, which we don't oppose, would require that final certification. What has been approved of the plan that you see that we attach to our package, I'm going to look at the exact number, but the proposed plan that was approved in December from Schofield Brothers, that septic system would not change in any relation relative to the proposed system, whether it's the conversion or not. It's to make sure that all 7 cottages are utilized. Yes, the cesspools are going to be removed, but that wasn't what was approved in December. It was for that specific plan that would go to be.
So a quick question. So when it went through in the fall, late fall, they said it was for the existing use. And you're saying that as a condo, this same design will apply, but you're reapplying to the Board of Health saying, no, this is for 7 separate condos, but you expect substantially that the engineering that we've reviewed will stay the same.
Correct. It hasn't changed. It'll be identical.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah, there's some misinformation going on around that septic system. It was approved. What wasn't approved is the actual installation permit, which
Yeah.
unbeknownst to me, I needed. We have
Oh.
hired,
Sorry, Gary. They said that it was approved as a seasonal property.
Yeah, they're overstepping.
Which might have been that what they thought, and I'm saying, are you reapplying, saying, no, it's gonna be full-time, but all the engineering stays the same?
Correct.
And are they gonna have the opportunity to approve? There's an approval from them coming up, I suppose.
Correct. And which is conditioned in the proposed conditions that before recording the special permit, that we
Yeah.
obtain all the required permits for that.
And when we say certification means in the ground and tested.
Yes.
Okay.
Which you don't have.
Which we don't have
They won't have it,
currently.
no.
We won't have it. It won't be into the ground permanently until beginning of June.
mid-June. We're asking for a provisional approval from the board tonight. Conditional on that septic system being in place.
Right.
So that,
And the special permit won't get recorded until we get the certification from the Board of Health.
Correct.
right, so the special permit will not take effect, meaning the conversion can't actually happen until the septic is installed and we get that final certification. So it basically
And those
prohibits-
cottages can't be sold until that system is in the ground and tested.
I would agree with that because that's what allows for the conversion as a special permit. So
Right. You can do marketing.
sales, right, the sales can't be completed until the special permit's in effect. So it's a little bit of order of operations that we have to contend with. So that's what we're recommending, that we kind of, the board could conduct its business tonight and approve if you chose to, but the special permit is kind of on hold in effect until all these other things that have to happen on the ground occur.
It's a springing permit. Springs to life.
I'm sorry, I have a problem with it. That you don't have a septic system in place before you come to us and ask for the special permit.
Certainly, we see it all the time.
Since it is one of the conditions, to my way of thinking, one of the very important conditions of the bylaw. It's not in the ground. You have an approval for a plan.
Could I explain why?
Sure.
We spent $300,000 on a nitrogen sensitive new technology system. And this board decides not to grant me that permit, and I'm in the seasonal rental business and I don't want to be. I can't spend $300,000 on a septic system that you may or may not permit us to use on a year-round basis. No.
If it's a system that is approved by the Board of Health, if it's tested, if it's in the ground, there's no reason why we wouldn't say, go ahead, sell the condos.
Well, then, in that case, you could give us or offer a conditional approval tonight pending that happening. According to your own rules and regulations, and this is from Linda Sassy, that you have I'm just gonna find it here real quick. The board may waive strict compliance with the requirements of these rules and regulations when, in the judgment of the board, such action in the public interest are not inconsistent with the zoning bylaws. So, I spent $4 million to buy that property and put some improvements in there, capital improvements that I think the
It was,
town-
you spent for your own personal self?
Yes.
So just, Madam Chair, if I just, I think what Mr. Vecchione is citing is the zoning board rules and regulations, which state that you can waive provisions of the rules and regulations.
We can, I understand that.
Right, but we're talking about the zoning bylaw.
Yes,
Yeah.
It's just two different things.
yes.
But again, and this is for the board to decide if what you're comfortable with is that
Yes, well,
it would be,
I'm being honest. I'm
no,
not.
I know, I just want to make
yeah,
sure.
I'm not
clear.
comfortable with a conditional approval.
I would push back a little bit, Joanne, and say that the development, it's a big plus for the town to get rid of these cesspools that are there now. So this type of system, no matter how the property is going to be used, this type of an AI system is going to go in place at this property eventually. I would disagree with Gary about that if you don't put in a septic system, you're in the rental business. I think unfortunately, there is no septic facilities on the site that are approved at this point without doing, whether you want to be in the rental business or not, some type of system has to go in. I'm willing to make it conditional, and my view is that anybody who's trying to repurpose the use of a piece of land and redevelop a piece of land, there are a lot of moving parts, and that they're risking, when they go out to sell any unit, they're risking, the buyers are risking, that this is fully installed and passes. Who knows? It could be some soil condition we don't know of that it may not pass, but either way, they wouldn't get occupancy permit. There is no way for anyone to occupy this without the board. The Board of Health has sort of the lead on this. And I don't see why we have to wait for the Board of Health to approve it first if we're saying that we're conditional on the Board of Health. Anybody buying a unit wouldn't be able to do anything. The current owners aren't able to rent it because we've already seen from the Board of Health that it's a failed system. So I feel the town is protected in that if this goes forward, because I understand if we really follow the letter of the law and say you have to do this, then this, then this, we're sort of tying development to people that have very big pockets, very deep pockets. If you say that, oh, it's going to take you 2 years to do this, when at the end of the day.
But you anticipated that it could be done by June, mid-June.
Correct.
We have a start date of May 26th.
Yeah.
A GFM, who was the company that demolished that cottage, not cottage, the big mansion.
Splash house, yeah.
Crescent,
Yeah.
They're very well thought of in the
Like,
area. They're on your
Mhm.
list of approved.
License,
Installers,
yeah.
yeah, licensed
Yeah.
installers, very well thought of. Justin Post, myself, Susan Barker, the Water Department, Highway Department, et cetera, all met on site. Justin was very impressed with the team that I put together, which just miraculously came together. Some
Yeah.
very sharp-minded people and are very well thought of in this area. I take issue with this Board of Health permit. Maybe it's just semantics, but that permit is approved. We have an approved septic system for 20 bedrooms, whether it's cottages for the season or cottages year round. It is approved. What is not approved is the installation permit to dig in the ground and install it. We don't have the notice of intent. We have just presented that to the board today. Alex Bates is listening on that, and he would know that. We've done everything the letter of the law. What I'm asking you to do is go outside of maybe your comfort level and say, does this make sense for the town? If we would have pushed the issue, we would have to obey your decision and say, well, we want the $300,000 septic system in the ground, but it would hurt me tremendously financially. Then what I'm offering to the town in keeping that property in perpetuity and no McMansions there ever on my own covenants that I offered, and Anthony can attest to that, we would have to remove them and say, okay, if it's just a financial thing, then I have to rethink this. But, you know, as I tell my family, who some of them are listening in, this is just not another piece of real estate for me. This is a way of life. And I'm happy to own it. I'm proud to own it. And I want to make the town proud of what I'm trying to accomplish. But if you hamstring me financially, it will hurt. And by making me put that septic system in, that will hurt me.
So,
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
Paul?
So I guess if, I just want to explain our way of thinking for this, just because maybe we're not on the same page, but the way that we've structured this would be the board could take action tonight to approve a special permit. And I don't mean to sound like I'm repeating myself. I just want to make sure we're all clear. You would approve the special permit, but in reality, the special permit, they don't have a special permit. It's not effective until all of these other things are done, meaning the septic's installed in the ground. It's not, we basically hold on to the special permit. We're not actually issuing it to them. It's not going to be recorded at the registry. And all these things are interconnected, that the covenant has to be recorded with the special permit, with the, excuse me, tickle my throat, with the condo deeds. It all has to go as a package. Now, if something falls through with this and the septic system isn't installed for another year, they don't have their special permit for another year. The properties can't change hands, complete the purchase and sale for another year, for another 2.
Mhm.
If things really go haywire
I think,
and it just doesn't happen, then that special permit basically doesn't take effect.
You raise a very good point, though. The way it's written, the condition doesn't have a time limit. So they could take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and this permit would just be hanging in limbo. So I kind of can appreciate Joanne's concerns. I guess my question is, Joanne, would you be more comfortable if there was a time limit on the condition that says within 6 months, whatever we think is a reasonable time limit, this will happen? And then if it doesn't happen, then then our ZBA approval expires.
If I may, to address Madam Chair's question and to follow up on Paul's and Mr. Bird's thought process here, we have done it before, and we've asked before where you have, when you have conditions of this nature, you put a special time limit on it, that we have to comply with all those conditions within a specific time frame. Traditionally, we look at something like 2 years for something of this nature, that it's held in escrow until the special permit approval is held in escrow for 2 years. We have 2 years, which is the traditional building permit time and things when things elapse. Whereas if we failed, we would have to come back before to get a new special permit, just like you would in a variance.
Yeah.
The same kind of
I
question.
think anything you get from the Board of Health is going to only be good for a year anyways.
Yeah.
So once you get your permit, you open the ground. Thanks.
So I think
I
that's
feel like a key to this do we allow the contingency or not is sort of about, not to put too fine a point on it, but who do we trust? Right? Ultimately, I don't think we're not saying we're gonna trust the applicant to not run off and sell these condos until they've approved the septic. We're saying we trust the town staff, I think, and I'm also asking if I got this right. We trust the town staff to not, stamp the seal of approval on the deeds, on the titles, so that property can transfer hands. And I think, if we consider whose interest is what, I think we can trust the town to get that right. And then, I don't think these guys are planning to run off and sell before they have a septic, but if that's their plan, I don't think they can do that.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd like to address that. There's an old saying that fences make good neighbors. Well, contracts make good neighbors as well. So make the contract as strong as you want.
Yeah.
And trust the contractor.
All right, want to ask the public for any questions? We didn't give them an input.
Wait,
Anything else, Madam Clerk?
yes. Let's see.
Sorry.
Oh, we were done?
let's-
Come on.
Let's,
I apologize.
I thought we were after that.
So I lived through the real estate crisis and I saw what happened to condominiums when suddenly money went away. So just a couple kind of questions about the condominiums. Will you describe for me just how the condominiums will be structured? So will they own the entire building, the inside of the building,
The land
And-
under the building.
the land under the building? Who's responsible for, I'm gonna string a few questions here and you can. Who's responsible for the maintenance of the common areas? What fees are gonna be paid for that? And are you gonna have a reserve in place to make sure that you have funds to take care of the property if something bad happens?
Yeah, so
Questions, I'm sorry.
that's okay. I'll take them all again in reverse. It's just how my brain works. So apologize.
Yeah.
In terms of reserve, with the purchase price, when anyone would purchase a condominium, some portion of that would be required to be loaded in to have a reserve for that for each particular unit. The condo fees that we're anticipating would be $600 a month, which sometimes, you do the math.
4,300.
Yeah,
About 50,000 a year, and that part of that will go to maintenance and the rest will go to a fund. So whether town of Eastham ever connects to sewer, we have money available. If the septic would fail, we have money available. But everyone on these particular condos, when I think of condos, I think of a mill being converted in, row by row or a section by section. These are individual standing lots or houses. Your assessors what is it? Assessor's website shows each one on their square footage anywhere from 650 to 1,500 square feet. We have hired John O'Reilly, engineering from Brewster, who has gone inside each cottage to verify the work that the assessor's office did too, because it's more exacting, and the way it was explained to me was it have to have more exacting terminology in the deed description when we go to sell it for deed. Each cottage has its own exclusive area and it has a common area. They all can go to the beach, they all can go to the boats, they can all go to a dog walk in the back. Guest parking, each cottage has one parking space per bedroom. So if it's 3-bedroom, there's 3 spaces minimum and guest parking.
Area, a question about the exclusive area versus, because we don't have a general plot plan for the project, we have a septic design. So my first question was, when you talk about the,
Let me interrupt real quick. We're gonna give you a little present here.
you have it coming? Okay.
it's a draft from our engineer that we got today. So if
Yeah,
if it came up, we wanted to be able to provide it
That's
to you.
fantastic. So as you're doing that, do you
May I-
have the upland calculation on the lot side, on the overall parcel?
Well, it's all, when you say upland, are you saying outside floodplain or?
you're basically buildable upland.
Buildable upland, I'll take a look at the.
No, so these aren't gonna be lot lines, they're just communal and exclusive areas.
So is that exclusive area, is that sort of like, this is private, no one can come in here, but I don't necessarily own it?
No, they do. Anthony would have to answer that one.
I'll take a quick look at this, thank you.
I think it's gonna be included in the actual footprint of the building. So the footprint of the building will have exclusive area outside the building as well. 15 feet away from the existing seawall will be common area, so you can walk and stroll, and get to the beach, get to the docks, things like that. Again, this is a working draft, but John O'Reilly has quite a bit of experience with this. He's creating a perimeter survey.
So who owns the land? Is the condo,
Well, right now,
Body.
150 LLC, Cottage Colony LLC owns the land.
and as each
That's me.
unit sold off?
They hope to be sold off eventually. I'm gonna live in one.
Oh, yeah.
I may buy a second one. And then we sell off a couple to,
But when that gets sold off, I own the building. If I'm your customer, I own the building. And I have the rights, lifetime rights to an exclusive area around my house.
Correct.
But if I dig a hole there and hold that dirt, who owns that piece of land? Is that still owned as a trust by the condo LLC?
Correct. It'd be owned by the LLC, but with an exclusive, the condo trust, but the exclusive use would be by the cottages
Okay.
itself.
one thing you should know
The
is
trust is
that,
dirt, but you can do what you want with it.
well,
Yeah.
you can do what you want with it, but the building cannot be touched. We're not allowing that to go up, down, sideways, anything. If it burns down, you have to build it back in the exact footprint. That's my present, if you will, or my
Yeah.
gift to the town, or my offering to the town. But it's also an offering to me because I am gonna live there. My children and ex-wife, they're gonna live there, God willing. So I have this vision in my head that I want it to look like that, which I know is rare.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's sometimes suspect, but it's real, and we're gonna put it in writing.
You can put it in writing that, they can.
It's in our condo docs that
Okay.
that,
So somebody who buys one of these cottages, that's written into the purchase agreement, right?
correct. Well, that would all be subject to the master deed in the condo docs.
The only thing that I want to see happen is if, let's say you had a bedroom there and had one window, I'd like to see maybe a slider there.
Oh,
And a
yeah.
woman asked me if she could change a window in one of the bedroom, or one of the kitchen in one of the cottages. I said, if you can make it look like 1928, you can change it.
Yeah.
So that's my goal.
So you actually raised one of my questions. So in the summary you put together, there's a statement that says the applicant intends to retain the historical paint color of the trim of the cottages and other buildings. Applicant further intends to retain the historical cedar shingling for all the buildings. Would you propose including that language as a condition to the granting of the permit?
No, the only thing we would say is that the color, let's say 7 people live there, and there's a super majority and 6 of them are tired of looking at the green. I'd like them to all change it to color.
Right.
So it'd be historical and we were originally thinking of maybe the Quetzit, I'm sorry, the Quasit look, the gray shingles with the white trim, it just kind of makes it pop. And then every window have a flower box or something, the bright colors and something to distribute it, I mean, to break up the color scheme a little bit.
The-
Yeah, I like you would not want to approve this and then 5 years from now, see a bunch of bright yellow cottages down there, right?
Never.
I don't think so.
The condo docs.
Never. Have you ever driven to Chatham Light? And the house, the greenhouse on
It's-
the right?
we're all
No,
familiar with
never.
that house, yes. The condo docs account for that as well, that they would all have to be uniform in color. Right now, it's maintained to be the green that the Collins family has had, and that's what is intended, but if it's gonna be uniform, if it's gonna be changed, it has to be
Right.
uniform.
I think
And
we would just want to maintain as a part of our approval, the character of what, exactly what you're talking about.
We're all for it.
Absolutely.
I think hearing that it's in the condo doc is good. I had several notes on that myself after reading your project description. You mentioned that you want to keep them that way, but it wasn't, I'm happy to hear that it's being,
In writing.
Martin, would you be okay including it as a condition though? Because they can change their condo documents.
they could,
Yeah.
let's, put a restriction on the size and shape of the buildings.
But that's just the language that they put in their summary.
Anthony and I spent over an hour on that this past week. So we're all for that, whatever language that makes you comfortable. I'm a firm believer that exclusively breeds value. So,
Oh, I'm pretty open to me, after being on the form-based zoning kick for a while now, I would like, the idea is if you drive by at 15 miles an hour, you don't know that anything happened.
That's right.
You know, if you
Right.
stop and look and say, oh, that's got new windows, those are Anderson windows, that's fine if they renovate it, as long as they look the same.
well, on
I'm
that
not
note,
as excited about restricting colors.
No.
well, if you pass by the garage, the boathouse, the shucking shack, we got building permit to re-roof it and we trimmed it out in copper instead of steel.
Yeah.
And we're gonna try to recreate the weather vane in copper. We my family, Anthony, we're all on board with the historical feel and look.
Yeah, yeah, I get it, I get it. I have, one topic that's a different category of topic now. When we talk about parking, circulation and public safety. I think the nature of the project of the property, when it was owned by the Collins family and there was one person that was responsible for what was happening. I have a real concern about access to Route 6 via the public launching area,
Never,
the public ramp.
not by us. We don't own it anyway.
I know you don't own it, but currently there's an open passageway there, which I think is fine for people that want, like, if you want to load your boat, I think it makes sense that you can go right to the launch. But my concern is that when we have 7 buyers and people look over there and say, oh, I'm going to Eastham, let me hop out this way because it saves me from going back to the Rotary. So I'm asking you, Gary, what would you do to restrict that more than, there's a rope there now?
Yep.
And when the
Well, we're
Collins family was there, I'm not saying there's an issue there now, but I could see with 7 different owners that there could be a potential issue that, do we put up the gate? Do we do something that's more durable than a rope?
The reason I haven't put a gate in there, I didn't want it to appear aggressive, that I was demarcating my land and your land. But I'm all for that. Safety is everything. There's a fisherman down there, one oysterman, who's asked, could he travel through the property to get out by the neck instead of that? And I said, absolutely. To me, that road is suicide alley. So I'm not gonna contribute in any way, shape or form. My own kids are gonna travel there, so I'm all about safety there.
So you're okay if we add a condition to restrict direct access to Highway 6 by means of a gate and maybe a turn right only sign, something like that?
I couldn't agree to a gate and turn right or any of that stuff, but we could certainly agree that no one from this property is gonna be encouraged to use Route 6. I don't know that they would. I've done it myself. I've had the gate down or the rope and I buzzed down to Northeast Ham because it's easier than going all the way up to the neck.
Oh,
and
yeah,
around.
yeah.
But safety is, I just don't think it
You're
rises
also
to the
doing
level of.
that, you're
need
doing that in
restriction.
January, February,
And
not August.
It would also, if you would install a gate, you'd have to go in front of the Concom for that approval, probably. Just depending on what you're going to do, but I think having,
I'm thinking of a fire gate, like a pole that comes across or something that's more durable than a rope. I'm at the lowest level of the, like what we have going into the water tanks, you have a fire.
Yeah,
Just a post coming across.
No, I like that idea.
yeah, that makes sense.
We'll do that.
Yeah, I don't want to see a chain link fence or something like that, and I appreciate the access to you and the future owners. That's just more safe for you to go that way. Watch your kayaks or whatever, walk down the ramp or whatever you need to do. But I think long-term.
No, we like that idea.
Okay.
Is it public property,
Oh, the launch area, yeah, the landing is,
right?
but we're just saying that access from there.
You're saying that there should be a public.
No. See their property where the road comes up here again?
Doug.
From here, there's a rope that goes across here right now.
Oh, okay. That's what you're.
And if that rope is down, anybody there says, oh, the rope's down. let me
They can
shoot it
go up.
east
Yeah,
down."
I'm not gonna put a lock on it though.
No, not asking for a lock because I'm
We'll
just
do
saying,
something.
Yep.
that
So
was-
you're okay if we put that into the conditions? Back to Doug's suggestion about the time limit on the septic system.
Well, so someone made the point that it's already 3 months into the permit, so we only have till December 25 to build a septic system as it was approved. Or we'd have to come forward again, so we don't want to come forward again. So it's our goal to have it done by the 25 or the 5th. A fail-safe would be that this board would say, okay, he didn't do it by the 25th, but if he gets us another permit, let him have another year. I don't expect this to take a year. There's a lot of interest that goes out monthly. We want this sold, but we want to do it, in a timely way, but a smart way. And I'll be honest with you, I don't always know what the best way is sometimes. So it's a work in progress for all of us.
Would a 1-year time limit on the condition be enough?
I don't know.
Right.
I honestly don't know. How about a 1 year provided if we get another permit approval from the Board of Health, you give us the extension, whatever they've given us.
You could have a 2-year time period and a 1-year review period.
It's not my plan
I-
to sit on this project, it's to move it along.
I'm comfortable enough with the condition that if we want to put a time limit on it, I think 2 years is is fine. I mean, I've
I'm
been in the
fine
paying
with
interest
2
while
years.
nobody's buying or leasing business, and I know you want to get out of that business. So I think the incentives are right.
You think
They're
it's
saying they want to do it fast. They're incentivized to want to do it
a
fast.
2-year time limit?
I think that's fine. And then that gives us a chance, if it's not happened in 2 years, obviously something's gone wrong, something's gone sideways. Maybe it's worth a re-review at that point to see, what's happening. But I think 2 years is enough runway to get the project they're trying to get done, that we don't have to come back and deal with it again.
Could you give us some wording on that, Paul?
May I ask a question
Sure.
for the applicant? Just because you handed this out, I wouldn't, why are you basing the number of spaces, parking spaces on the bedrooms?
Because I looked in your bylaws and it said every bedroom had to have one car spot, one car park. Bedroom. But we go above and beyond that because we have guest parking anyway.
You might have me at a loss because I don't remember that section of the bylaw.
I think I have it in my application.
I actually think it's also part of your commercial laws that a certain per 1,000 square feet, it's only one car per 1,000 square feet of retail space. I'm just,
That's in the North Eastham Business District, but we don't have any minimum for residential.
well, as I say, even if it was more than the one per bedroom, we can top that by having 7 minimum spots above and beyond one spot per bedroom. So we have 7 cars of guest parking as well. And we have 3 parking spaces down by the patio, of the dock, in front of the boathouse, which is, I think it shows on your plan, 18 by 36. We have
Well,
another 3 or 4 potential.
I think this, in my opinion, gets into the planning board realm. But since you brought this up with the plan, I think I'm just seeing this, so I guess my thinking is that you have more parking than you need. And if you're going to be adding spaces and that you're gonna be getting into site plan review, and
Right.
next month's meeting is to discuss whether or not to waive site plan review, so we can discuss that.
Penalized by doing a good thing, Paul.
Well,
As,
I want to make sure that this goes as smoothly as possible, so, when we talked before, what I heard was there's nothing changing, there's nothing physically changing with the site, so now I'm seeing a lot of parking spaces being formalized and added, including parking right on, basically right on top of the bulkhead wall facing the ocean,
That's
so,
pre-existing.
right. But,
But
but now, and I don't mean to, this really is gonna be site plan review, but
Well, I just want to.
when you get into putting these spaces in, I mean, you're formalized, yeah, I understand it's been an informal situation there for decades and people apart, but now we've opened up the box, and so you're formalizing things. So I'm just saying that when the planning board, when we look at this for planning board review, and the planning board's gonna look at this, say, you're installing, how, and again, maybe this is just, are you putting,
The line on the paper, Paul, it's not an installation and there's no
Well-
permit there. So that's a key
all right,
point.
well, if you're gonna, I'm just saying, you mentioned safety, so if you're gonna have people parking on that bulkhead, whether or not it's been going on now's the time to look at it. So like bollards, so people don't hit the gas and go into the, I understand people have been parking there for decades, but that was then. Now we're talking about requesting waivers and doing site plan review, whether or not, so those are the things we're gonna look at.
right.
And I think, and I originally brought this up because I think you have more parking than you need. So if you don't need all this parking, then maybe some of these areas that are gonna be problematic, you don't need the parking
Yeah,
there.
That's a
So-
phrase you don't hear.
I don't want to get this off track because
Yeah.
this, fairness to the zoning board, this is, in my opinion, this is site plan review things, but brought the plan up, and I think the ZBA should be aware of, these issues will come up next month at planning board, so.
Right. And to that extent, I will say a few things. One, this draft was provided to us maybe at about 3 o'clock today. It is very, very preliminary in this, and that's a conversation that we have with, of course, yourself, Paul, and before we even get approached with the planning board on any of these things. And the parking is simply historical. In our condo docs, we have that there's absolutely no approval or ability to have any hardscaping or gravel or change in the landscaping there. So to the extent that you're seeing what looks like parking spaces, that there would be additional parking spaces, absolutely not. No paving, that will not happen. The parking currently isn't paved. It's going to maintain that way. We're not looking to change anything whatsoever. Just, for those purposes, you can certainly disregard. And if there's more than is needed, we're always willing to work with that, because no one wants more, no one wants more parking. We want less. We want if you were there a year ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, and then 50 years from now, we want it to look exactly the same.
And our agreement with GFM is that they replace the parking with gravel base and crushed shell.
Any other questions, Justin?
Just gonna say, I've learned a valuable lesson about surprising Paul with documents at the meeting.
Well, we wanted the ability to show the lines if that question came up. That's why we had it ready today. Because I assume that might come up to see what it potentially could look like.
Sure.
Do we have any comments from the public
Online,
or
Yeah.
people online?
anybody raising their hand online?
If I may, Madam Chair, just request, if it's within your consideration in your typical process, to request a poll before you go to, if I may poll the board before you go to specific voting. I just wanted to, if that's in your practice, I would reserve the right to do
Yeah.
so.
Let me get a few things, a couple of details organized here. First of all, we have offered a 2-year timeframe for the installation of the septic system to be put in the ground, certified and tested. We have asked that in the conditions that you put, we add under additional conditions, we're going to add number 7 here, that you restrict somehow direct access out to Route 6 by means of some sort of a gate pole, something more substantial than a rope or a chain.
Madam Chair, I'd also ask that we consider putting a condition in that the applicant will retain the historical paint color of the trim of the cottages, and the buildings, and the historical cedar shielding.
I just don't want to be,
Which is their language.
I don't want to be locked into the Collins green for, 20 years.
Mhm.
We put in there, I think, that a supermajority of the 7 owners of the cottages have to agree on whatever color it is. We can certainly say it's pastel or something like that, no neon, or I'm sure Anthony could come up with language to that.
Yeah, the color of a historical nature and uniform throughout the condominiums would be
Would you be agreeable
appropriate.
to a historical paint color for the trim of the cottages and the buildings,
Yes, that's fine.
Not the cottages, though, the cottages.
right? But a uniform,
I think I'm not excited about. But if that makes things easier I think you want it to be uniform no matter what.
We do.
So I'm happy to make it uniform, but I'm not gonna tell you
If
what
anybody
color.
doesn't like it, we'll say the times.
No, we're not stipulating a color, but just that you will maintain historical paint colors
and the cedar shingles.
and exterior siding.
One just off-topic technical question here about abutters. I saw there was like a mailing fee to abutters that didn't get a check mark. There's this abutters list request form that just kind of seems like there's not much here. I just wanted to make sure, did this go through some appropriate abutters notification process? I'm getting,
Completed every step.
okay, cool. That's what I thought. The
Okay.
documents looked funny to me. Good.
Okay, all right, so I'm,
That's condition 8.
yes.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to close this part of the meeting to the public. Jared, would you read the proposed conditions for us, please?
Well, just before we do
yes,
that,
Paul.
maybe we could just work on these other,
Okay,
before we start listing. just-
okay, I'm sorry.
And then we're gonna do a poll. For the-
Oh, and then we'll do your poll.
So I guess regarding the time frame, you could add in a condition. I'm starting things off, so feel free to wordsmith with me. So the special permit shall be fully executed pursuant to the conditions included in this approval by April 3rd, 2026, which would be 2 years from this date. Failure to
2027.
27, sorry. Thank you for the math.
You're welcome, Gary. Just gave another year there.
Oh, I think
2027.
You can just put it in number 2. Because numbers 2 is a finding and certification from the Eastham Board of Health. We just insert there within 2 years of this approval that the septic and water has been approved.
Yeah.
Because the 2-year limit only applies to the septic.
No.
Yeah.
The 2-year applies, the 2-year applies to the special permit.
Yeah,
Well,
but
yeah,
as
yeah,
with
but
the
but
septic as a
special
component.
permit is.
If they were to fail condition 2 by taking more than 2 years, then the whole special permit would be off.
That's correct. That's correct.
So you're saying a finding and certification from the Board of Health
Within 2 years of this approval.
shall be obtained within 2 years of the approval of this.
Thank you. Okay. Something else, Paul?
And then you,
We talked about historic colors and the uniformity of.
The exterior siding.
Of trim and finish.
Yeah.
There's one other note here that's related to the covenant in your conditions that would need to be updated. That would be section 2, sub 7. The covenant shall run with the land and be in effect in perpetuity, which is the changes that we've
Right,
agreed to
right,
in the
right,
covenant.
Yeah, yeah.
Where's that one?
It's down here in number 7. Instead of 99 years, it should in effect.
In
in
perpetuity.
perpetuity.
Yeah.
Where does it make sense to put in the color and uniformity of the exteriors?
That was number 8.
Probably a separate.
I mean, number 8, we do
It-
it, we do it.
I put that at additional conditions is number 8.
We typically, yeah, those kinds of additional conditions you can put, I have it as number 7 is your gate condition.
Yep.
Permanent swing arm gate,
Yes,
line abutting the landing,
yes.
be 7.
Right.
8 would then be the exterior paint colors and the cedar shingles. Would you like those in one condition?
Hmm.
No problem.
How do we want to write the one about the barrier to the roadway?
You got that as number 7. She said it would be direct access to Route 6 would be restricted.
Okay.
They'll give it to us.
Yeah.
It'll be written down, we'll read.
Okay.
So just thinking that the reason for the sign out. Put a sign out that said no left turn, no access to Route 6.
hanging on the gate.
Gate, yes, near,
Yeah,
near
yeah,
the opening to 6, yes.
It could be a cedar pole or something like that, you know, it's not, it could be rustic looking as far as I'm concerned, but something better than a roof. That's all.
Cedar pole of uniform color?
Okay. Jared,
Findings of fact,
please.
in the case of ZBA 2025-02, the zoning board of appeals finds that, number one, the property is located at 150 State Highway and is located in the residential zoning district A. Number two, 150 Old State Highway Cottages LLC. Owner applicant seeks a special permit pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Section 40A, subsection 6, and Eastham Zoning Bylaws, Sections 19.2 special permits and 4.7 conversion of an existing cottage, colony, motel, hotel, or inn to a single-family, two-family, multifamily, or seasonal workforce housing use under any type of ownership, including but not limited to condominium ownership, cooperative ownership, or other forms of ownership, whereas structure or portion thereof is held in different ownership from the remainder of the structure or the land on which is to convert 7 pre-existing non-conforming seasonal use cottages to 7 individual year-round condominiums. Number 3, the applicant has applied for site plan approval waiver pursuant to Eastham zoning bylaws 10.2.1 and will appear before Eastham Planning Board on April 16th, 2025. The case number is PB 2025-05. Number 4, at the time of the public hearing on April 3rd, 2025, the applicant does not have a finding and certification from the Eastham Board of Health that the septic system and water supply system for said premises comply with the Eastham's current health code requirements and/or as set forth in Title V of the Massachusetts Sanitary Code. Final certification is issued by the Eastham Health Department upon completed installation and final inspection and approval of the septic system. Number 5, the applicant has submitted a draft covenant to the town planner. Town legal counsel has amended the draft such that the language of the covenant is acceptable and guarantees that the converted unit shall be rented and/or leased for a period of not less than 12 consecutive months, or that the units shall be owner occupied. The converted units will not be eligible for a short-term rental certificate from the Eastham Board of Health. The covenant is in draft form and has not been executed with the town nor registered at the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds. 0 abutters parties in interest appeared at the,
Karen,
We'll actually
you can
change
change that to
six.
1,
oh yeah,
One.
and how do we handle people that are online?
It's 6 because they
We'll say
appear as
6.
well.
Okay,
And 0 letters have been received in either direction.
So it's 6 abutters, parties in interest, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
6 abutters parties in interest appeared at the public hearing for ZBA 2025-02. I'm sorry, it was 0 letters,
0 letters,
and 0 letters were received in favor or in opposition.
right. May I have a vote to approve the findings of fact?
move. I so move.
Okay. A second, please.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Doug, would you read?
Sure.
Yes,
I just want to go over the conditions one more time just before.
okay, okay.
The installation of the gate. Just, I don't wanna get painted into a corner or the applicant to have that, so. Cause they're gonna go to planning board and. I don't know what the discussion will be, so if for some reason the planning board doesn't want them to do a gate or we come up, sorry. They're gonna go to planning board and if there's reasons why that's not gonna be feasible, and then we kind of have to go back and clean this up. My
Could we,
thought would be you could make it a condition that the applicant seek the necessary approvals from planning board and if necessary, conservation commission to have
some kind
gate
of
or some
restriction.
sort of restriction, some sort of restriction to the access, or something like that. I just don't,
All right, so we,
Gary, what about a big rock in front of it? Do you guys care? You don't want a rock, because you want to be. What's that?
well, that's the,
Yeah,
that's
this-
the other
this
reason
is
I
also
brought
gonna
up
have
is,
to go in front of public safety.
yeah, we're gonna share the site plan with public safety.
Yeah.
And if for some reason they say, we actually want,
Oh, I agree. I think.
know,
it
so
is
I just
good.
don't want-
I like the idea that there's access there for fire department and so forth. Yeah.
but I think we can insert language so that it's clear the zoning board favors that there's some, that issue be addressed, but it doesn't necessarily dictate what has to happen. Then we can
We're not restricting
handle
it
it.
for those other boards.
Right, and then it's for the planning board. Will, you know,
Yeah.
I think that's a strong recommendation that the planning board will, you know, take seriously from this board, but it just, at least we have some latitude to figure out what the best.
right, right. So we're going to
I agree with
reword
that.
this a little bit to say that, to the applicant should get approvals, plural, to restrict direct access to Highway 6.
I would say, I guess,
To work with planning and conservation, come up with a solution to restrict access.
to mitigate,
Direct access.
to mitigate traffic and safety issues from the site onto Route 6.
Work with planning and what?
Other town boards.
Not restrict all access from Route 6, right?
Well, so I wouldn't say that. I would say to mitigate
Direct.
potential,
access.
mitigate potential traffic and safety issues accessing this Route 6.
Excuse me, I think you might want to put in there the words Collins Landing. And
Right,
by all
actually, that's
means, restrict it for that lot of 150 State Highway because it is a Form A lot. We'll put in there that we will never ask for access through there. It's a condo project. I'm safety conscious as everyone.
yeah, no, that's actually correct. We should, and again, Collins Landing is a public
Oh,
landing, so, you know, they have a right to access it, but, so that's why I would just put,
Mhm.
I wouldn't put so
To
fine.
mitigate potential
language
traffic and
around-
safety issues accessing Collins Landing.
Right, then we have some room to maneuver about like what it, you know, it might be a gate, it might be signage, it might be a boulder, it might just be, I don't even know, or we may find that we don't want
Well, does the
That-
town have a safety committee?
no.
We willingly add that police, fire, highway can all weigh in on that.
Oh, yes, yes. And they
We'll
should
be
able to.
sharing the plan. That's part of our planning board review. So the staff, public safety staff will look at it. And if they have any concerns or reservations, we can bring that up at the planning board hearing.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
Yes, sir. Would you read?
Or try, I'll do my best.
Okay.
Proposed conditions, the special permit is granted pursuant to section 4.7 of the town zoning bylaws. And
I'd like to change that to conditional.
Conditional
It is going to be conditional.
is conditionally granted,
Yes.
good point. So, beginning again, number one, the special permit is conditionally granted pursuant to section 4.7 of the town zoning bylaws, and the applicant or their successors in interest shall comply with the special permit and the provisions of section 4.7 of the zoning bylaws. Number two, the special permit is contingent upon and not to take effect until the applicant has secured all necessary town approvals, including but not limited to. Number one, site approval from the planning board pursuant to section 3.8 or 10.2 of the zoning bylaw, as applicable, or written confirmation that the planning board has granted a waiver therefrom. And two, a finding and certification from the Eastham Board of Health within 2 years of this approval that the septic system and water supply system to serve the subject premises complies with the Town of Eastham's Health Code and Title V of the Massachusetts Sanitary Code. Applicant shall provide written proof of such finding and certification to the building commissioner prior to recording this special permit. 3, the special permit decision shall be recorded against the master deed for the condominium development and shall be recorded against or incorporated into the individual deeds for the condominium units, such that all unit owners shall have notice of the applicability of the special permit to their unit. 4, prior to recording the special permit decision, applicant shall execute a covenant in a form acceptable to the town and approved as to form by town council. The covenant shall be approved and signed by the Eastham Select Board. Said covenant shall comply with provisions of section 4.7 of the town's zoning bylaws, including but not limited to the following. 5, the covenant shall acknowledge and ensure that units converted to single-family use pursuant to the special permit shall be rented and or leased for a period of not less than 12 consecutive months, or that the units shall be owner occupied. In other words, the units may not be used as short-term rentals as defined under General Laws, Chapter 64G. 6, the covenant shall acknowledge and ensure that the units converted to seasonal workforce housing shall be rented and or leased for the purpose of housing seasonal workers for not more than 6 consecutive months. 7, covenant shall run with the land and be in effect in perpetuity. 8, the covenant shall be recorded against the title of the condominium master deed and recorded against the titles of or incorporated into deeds for individual condominium units, such that all current or future owners of any units have notice of the applicability of the covenant to their units. Proposed condition number 3. Plans reviewed conducted by town staff as part of this special permit and as listed above have been conducted for conformance with applicable sections of the zoning law. Additional plan review for health and safety code compliance may be required and may result in changes to the approved plans. Any changes to the plans listed in this decision letter, except those that are de minimis, must be reviewed by the zoning board. If the board finds a change to be substantial, renotice is necessary for a new hearing. 4, the applicant shall file the special permit decision with the Barnstable County Registry of Deeds and provide a copy to the Eastham Building Department before the issuance of a certificate of use and occupancy. 5, use of the converted residential units as fractional ownership, interval or timeshare units is prohibited per section 6.12 of the Eastham zoning law. 6, the board reserves the right to monitor the ongoing project for compliance with the approved plan.
7,
7, the applicant will retain a uniform historical paint cover for the trim of the cottages and the buildings and will retain the historical cedar single siding for all buildings.
8,
8. Got that right.
Access.
8,
we'll work with planning and other
the
boards.
applicant shall seek approval of the Town of Eastham Planning Board and, if needed, the Conservation Committee to mitigate potential safety or traffic concerns at Collins Landing.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the conditions?
Move that we approve the conditions.
May I have a second, please?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Now for the permit.
May I have a motion to approve conditionally the special permit for case number ZBA 2025-2 pursuant to section 4.7, conversion of an existing cottage colony of the zoning, of the town zoning bylaws to allow the cottage colony known as Collins Cottages to be converted to owner-occupied single-family condominium units, subject to all of the conditions listed above.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Voice vote. Jared?
Aye.
Aye.
And me reluctantly. So the vote is 5-0.
That's same.
Thank you all. Thank you very much for your, for the.
Thank you.
meeting.
Good luck with your project. Okay,
Minutes.
we need a vote to approve the minutes from February 6th. I have one teeny tiny correction. On page 3 of the minutes. Under other business. The board discussed the need for training on updated bylaws at rather than as,
Thank you very much.
at some point in the near future. And could I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended with that one little word?
I move to approve the minutes as so amended.
Just one more, I'll call out, Joanne, my name is spelled wrong in the very last.
Oh, boy. My move has been rejected.
What?
My movement was rejected.
Oh dear, oh dear.
What do we do now?
Where was, what did you?
Under adjournment, a motion by, and the first time it's spelled wrong, the second time it's spelled right. So it's O-D, not E-D.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Damn.
Thank you, Jared. I didn't catch that. Okay. Could I have a second on the minutes approval?
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? It's, oh,
Sorry, just a couple other,
yes, okay.
the proposed zoning amendments for the Northeast End Business District and the ADU bylaw will be on the town warrant for May 5th.
Right.
We did complete the Cape Cod Commission hearing for the Northeast End Business Amendments. The commission approved it unanimously.
Okay,
We had our planning board public hearing last month. That was also approved. I just wanted to let the board know that after the hearing, based on some feedback we got at the hearing, we took a look and the zoning task force met and discussed this. So we're going to be recommending at town meeting two technical changes because we have to, it's too late to do it beforehand because the public hearing
Yeah,
process is closed. So
right.
The first one is that the bylaw that was proposed would allow multifamily as a principal use in the zoning on the Holmes Road Trade Park District, the industrial area. The recommendation will be to take that out of the principal uses and move it into accessory uses. And the reason for that is there was some concern brought up, which I think is legitimate, that if you allow it as a principal use, someone could develop just a large multifamily in that area and kind of take away from the limited trade space that we have.
Yeah.
And kind of,
Yes, right.
and that would be an unintended consequence. So I think it's definitely something we want to pursue, that over time we can plan out that area and maybe those principal uses can coexist, but by putting it into accessory, we kind of negate that possibility. So some housing can still go in there, but it has to be tied to a use that's authorized. And so that'll just by nature lessen the impact of that.
Okay, good.
And the second one is in the dimensional table, there's a requirement for minimum percentage of outdoor amenity space. And really the reason for that is to make sure that for commercial mixed use, there's area on the site where you can have amenities. So restaurants can have outdoor seating, picnic tables, public park, gardens, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
the proposal will be to take that requirement out for the industrial area, because again, the nature of those businesses down there, they're not gonna,
conflicting.
they're not gonna have there's not retail or where people are, you know, coming down and to use the amenities. And
Right,
it
you're not-
also,
They won't bring their picnic lunch there.
right, and it also would take up a fair amount of land on
Mhm.
those that, and as you know, you go down there, pretty much 100% of those lots are being used for something, parking vehicles or whatever. So we wanted to scale that back. You would, if a new development happens, there would still be requirements for the landscaping along the street and some setback
Right.
buffering, but you wouldn't have to take up a large percentage for just space that wouldn't serve any purpose. So those are two, I just want to make sure the board was aware.
Okay,
And as you talk to folks in the community, so if all goes according to plan, the zoning will be approved, but then we'll offer those two technical changes at town meeting.
Will they get made after the plan is approved, or will we do them? How does the sequence of that happen?
You know, I haven't figured that out yet, what the best way to do that is, so.
okay. And we don't have any cases for May.
For me.
Okay. So we
That's-
can all enjoy Memorial Day
That's
weekend.
final at this point?
Is the appeal window now closed for the development on Bow Road?
Or the planning board approval, yeah.
Yeah, they had 20 days to, appeal, and it's been
Yeah.
withdrawn now. Okay.
Okay.
What's going on, Bo?
There were,
There's a-
abutters,
Yeah, there was a project on Bow Road.
46 Bow Road.
And it was initially for an 8-bedroom house that gets cut back to 5 or 6 bedrooms, and it got approved by the planning board. It's on a large lot.
Yeah, this,
And one of the abutters was appealing, but it's been withdrawn.
it has, okay,
Yeah.
That one's what we're talking about.
right around the corner from my house.
Oh, okay, now I'll move
Good
to
to know.
adjourn. Anybody want to adjourn?
It's fun.
Or-
I
or
move
do you
to
wanna
adjourn.
Just hang out here.
Just hang out.
We could adjourn and still hang out, you know?
We're right. I
Okay,
think we should adjourn, so hanging out does not.
Oh, yeah.
okay, give me a motion,
I
somebody.
move to adjourn.
Okay,
Oh,
all right.
I
and-
second that.
Okay, all in favor.
aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, everybody.
Can you vote
Um,
no to something that you moved? Like if I move